So supposedly there was an arrest of Scot Peterson, the lame cop that didn't really go into the Parkland school during the shooting, who supposedly it's his fault that these people were killed. I'm sure it has nothing to do with a planned ritual or anything like that. It's just because this guy didn't go in. I'm sure it has nothing to do with how it was, planned by these, according and in sync with lunar eclipses and solar eclipses, and I'm sure it's 100% this guy's fault. But I think there may be some other reasons here why this guy was arrested the other day. And I think we might be able to uncover them. What do you think? It might not even be that hard, but let's go back and review the Parkland shooting, which was at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas School, which, by the way, was 17 years after the USS Cole attack, and there were 17 people who were killed in both events, which I'm sure is just a coincidence. Now, from the last solar eclipse to the shooting, so we got the last lunar eclipse or solar eclipse before the shooting was 177 days. You see that starts with 17, 1-7 again. And Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in the septenary Bible cipher that is used so much in these ritual events, mass murder events, equals 1-1-7. You see again a 17 there. Now, the shooting occurred on February 14. Notice the 14. And it was 14 days from the prior lunar eclipse to this shooting. 14 days on February 14, and Marjorie Stoneman Douglas equals 3/14. Now, somehow the number 35 is so often used in mass shootings. For example, the supposed shooter, Nicholas Cruz, his name in the septenary cipher equals 35. And you'll even see that Cruz starts with a 3-5. You also see how his name starts with a 1-5-3, which we're going to get into here in a few minutes. And you also see a 2-1-6 in his name, which is the Kabbalah number. We know that a cube is 2,160 degrees, like they tell us that the diameter of the moon is 2,160 miles, or 1 cube. You see, so this guy's name is definitely very well planned out here to give us a meaning. So Nicholas Cruz is the supposed shooter of the Parkland incident. Look at what road goes across the Silver Bridge in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. The bridge that collapsed, famous for the Mothman movie. You'll see that it's US 35. And how about the Interstate 35 that ran across the Minnesota bridge that collapsed? You might remember that the Oklahoma City bombings is on the I-35 corridor. In other words, it's the latitude 35 degrees north. The fallen ones, they use this number all over the world to accomplish their ends, such as when Martin Bryant killed 35 people in Tasmania on April 28th, the 119th day of the year, by the way, back in 1996, which resulted in the banning of many guns in the region. But I'm sure that's just another coincidence. Now look what happens when you spell out the number 35. So if you go to your gematrinator.com calculator, which looks like this, you go to tools, you go to the calculator right here, then you type out your word, okay? So look what happens. 35 equals 53 in the septenary cipher. The one used in the movies. I've already demonstrated several ones that the septenary cipher is used in the movies. It's used in these ritual shootings all the time. Well, the movie Bumblebee showed us there's a relationship between 35 and 53. And this is no mistake. Make no mistake about it. I blew it up real big so you could see it. See the helicopter on the back? 135, 53. And the last scene of that movie is Optimus Prime and Bumblebee driving across the Golden Gate Bridge, which Golden Gate Bridge equals 135 as well. Now, the people at Oklahoma City, the collaborators, McVeigh and Nichols, look at the combination with their names and how it equals 135 and 53, or 153, however you want to look at it. McVeigh starts with 135 and Nichols is 153. Not by coincidence. And then today, Zach was talking about on his, actually I think he made it yesterday, but was talking about how Robert Kennedy is known for the Jesuit order and was killed at the Ambassador Hotel, okay, and how JFK was shot 153 days before the next election. And look how Ambassador Hotel and Jesuit order have that 153. So that's the reason we're looking out for the Golden Gate Bridge on the year Tiger Woods won out of nowhere. Isn't that amazing? Golden Gate Bridge 135, and this year Tiger Woods equals 135. So now back to the latest event concerning the Stoneman Douglas School. On 6/4/19, the Idaho police officer Scot Peterson was arrested. 6/4/19. Now look how from the last lunar eclipse before the arrest to this arrest was 135 days. And it's always the eclipse before or after the event. So we're going to be looking at lunar eclipses before and after the shooting, and lunar and solar eclipses before and after the arrest. So in case you think this arrest wasn't well planned in advance by these secret societies, they were sure to leave us their insignia. So from the shooting date to the arrest date was none other than 3 months, 22 days. You know, the famous skull and bones insignia. It's just like when George Bush was sure to leave his mark on the death of Tim Russert, who had just questioned his affiliation with the order on live television a week prior. And here you see from the news article on Wikipedia that he was dead at 2:23 p.m. Now, the shooting was in Parkland, Florida, which bears that very special number 139. You see that Parkland in the reverse ordinal cipher equals 139. 3 and 9 are very important numbers in sacred geometry, gematria, and numerology. Ones are not important and can be disregarded, leaving just the 39. The Trinity is 3, and 3 times 3 is 9. That's why there are 39 books in the Old Testament, and why its mirror number 93 is the number of God. The sun, which represents God, is said to be 93 million miles away. And like I always say, in Micah, the coming Messiah is actually called the Sun, S-U-N, of righteousness. That's why the Freemasons claim this number. Freemasonry equals 139. So would it really surprise anyone if from the last solar eclipse before Scot Peterson's arrest was 93 weeks away from his arrest date? And that resembles very strongly the amount of time that passed from the Parkland shooting date until the next solar eclipse after the Parkland shooting date. 139 days, a year and 139 days. What a surprise. And this number is the number of Flight 93 that hit the World Trade Center. Seems a little more significant now, doesn't it? So would it surprise you at all if other 9/11 numbers were involved in this shooting? Let's take the word Parkland. Parkland equals 77. As Zach Hubbard has said a million times on Gematria Effect News on YouTube and in his book, Flight 77, 77 minutes after takeoff, hit the 77-foot tall Pentagon. Just reminds me like when Jalea Davis, which I'll get into here in a minute, a local murderer in my neighborhood, was killed on Interstate 77 as well. Now, we've already seen how Marjory Stoneman Douglas School is 314 in the reverse ordinal cipher. 314 is the number of pi. More specifically, it's 3.14, but decimal points don't mean anything in Gematria. One way to represent pi is by the number 227 or 722. This is due to the fact that 22 divided by 7 is 3.14. In fact, look what happens when I hold down my Alt button on my keyboard and I press 227. You see the pi symbol it creates? The media loves to use pi to create reminders of past events. For example, when Jalea Davis was murdered in our hometown, the 2 local newspapers published reminder stories of the murder On March 14, which is 314, and again on the 227th day of the year. Sometimes they even seem to be predicting future events, such as when we see 722 on the Decepticon in the Bumblebee movie, right there on his chest. I think we will see this number again. The last scene of this movie is Optimus and Bumblebee driving across the 227-meter tall Golden Gate Bridge. So it is completely fitting that a school which has a number of pi associated with it, 314, would have another event associated with it along with the number 722. Now, see how many days go from the arrest of Scot Peterson to the next lunar eclipse after his arrest. There's the date of the next lunar eclipse. There's the date of his arrest. 722 days between them. And just in case you are still tempted to think this is only a coincidence, and surely not after all this, you might also look at how from the shooting date itself to the lunar eclipse following the shooting was a very similar number, 341, which is just a scrambling or reworking of the numbers of 3.14. Now look at the name of the school, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and look at the circled numbers on the following picture. Multiply these numbers together, and yet again we see the same pattern. So this is using the septenary cipher down here, where my cursor is. Marjorie is 20, Stoneman is 24, Douglas is 28. Multiply 20 times 24 times 28, and it equals this number here, which is just the same numbers, 134, another reworking of 314. 134, 314. It's all the same thing. So when we see that Scot Peterson, who's clearly being supposedly arrested, but it's really just a skull and bones ritual, this Fraternal Order of Police, which is heavily involved in this sort of skull and bones thing, and that's a Masonic society, Fraternal Order of Police. We know that this is just a reminder of what they did, of what they planned out on that day, and just to keep it into the consciousness of the society, that the Matrix wants you to be thinking about death and murder and the people that supposedly or may have been actually killed. In fact, I think the first person that was killed, and I meant to put that on there, I forgot, Elisa Al-Hadef, I think was her name. And her name, when you multiply it out in the septenary cipher, that actually equals 1080, the same as Jalea Davis multiplied out in the same cipher. So, and that of course is the radius of the moon. 1080 miles is the radius of the moon. And so, not surprisingly, this is well thought out, well done, and just being done to put out murder, killing into the public awareness for the sake of trying to eliminate guns, probably, but probably not just that. I'm sure that their plans for the Illuminati go so much farther. I don't think it's just all about that, but clearly sometimes it is, just like here in the Port Arthur massacre in Tasmania, when they killed 35 people, and then of course right after that they took all the guns away. So clearly that's a piece of the puzzle, but I don't think it's all that there is to it. So anyway, thanks for watching, and please like, share, and subscribe.